This is tutorial number 164, and it is the intro to the Flex feature within Solidworks. To start off, open up tutorial part number 164, which is located on the DVD. So in this tutorial, I'm just going to cover a few basic parameters of the Flex feature, and then in the following tutorials, we're going to be going over specific examples of using the Flex feature. So to get to the Flex feature, all we have to do is click Insert, Feature, click Flex, and now we have the Flex feature dialog menu on the side. So the basic features that I'm going to go over are going to be the trim plane, 1 and 2, and the triad. And by using these three variables, you're able to apply it to the bending, twisting, tapering, and stretching flex within SolidWorks. So the first thing you have to do is select the body that you want to flex. So have this box highlighted and just select this body. So you'll see that you have two planes shown and a triad. So what the trim planes are and what they mean is that whatever is in between the two trim planes is going to be flexed, or whatever it is going to be bending, twisting, tapering, or stretching. So whatever is in between those two trim planes is what's going to be affected by your flex. So as you can see, you have trim plane 1 corresponds to trim plane 1, trim plane 2 corresponds to trim plane 2. So you're either able to select a point to move it. So say we want to move it to a point. So let's click this, and this is on trim plane 1. Let's move it to this point here. Now your trim plane moves there, and everything behind it is not going to be affected by the flex. Now, you can also do it just by moving it. So let's move trim plane 2. As you increase it, it goes in. As you decrease it, it goes out. So you're able to pull this in nice and tight, and you have a different region now than what you began with. So anything in between here is going to be affected by the flex. Now, with the triad, you're able to move around your trim planes. So you're able to move around the angle and where they're actually going to be coming into contact. So by playing around with this, you're able to play around with where your trim planes are when you play with this axis. Now, your triad is also dependent on the bending axes. So you can see the bend axes here. As you move these around, that's going to be, the axis that is going to move your, in this case, the bending feature. So your triad also it's responsible for the trim plane as well as the bending, twisting, tapering, or stretching. So by moving this around, you're moving around where your action is going to take place around. And if you, with the triad again, you can either move it around manually with your hand, or you're able to do it with the triad box here. So as you increase, it's going to increase, decrease, you're able to put it on an angle, and you can see that everything is moving on an angle too, relatively to the triad, so your trim planes. So with these tools, you're able to manipulate what area you want on your part to have the flexing, and where something like your bend axis, and just where it's going to take place around. So these are just the basic features that we're going to be using in the next 4 tutorials that we're going to be covering: the bending, twisting, tapering, and stretching. So this is just an intro just to show you what we're going to be doing, and when I refer to like a trim plane, how we're going to be moving them around, and just a basic little intro into the whole flex feature. So this concludes our tutorial on the flex feature within SolidWorks. This is tutorial number 165, and it covers the flex bending feature within SolidWorks. To start off, open up tutorial part number 164, which is located on the DVD. Now, the previous tutorial, we went over the intro to the flex features, so now we're going to be using the bending feature, using the features that I showed in the previous tutorial. So let's go to the flex bending feature. So let's click Insert, click Feature, click Flex, and make sure that you've selected bending. So to start off, let's select our input. So for the body. It's going to be this entire body, so let's click it. And now we have our trim planes and our bending axis. So this first time, what we're going to do is we're just going to leave everything as is and just create a bend. So to create the bend, all you have to do is change the angle here. So as we increase it, you can see the yellow is the result, and you can see how it's all bending around that bend axis there. So let's make this bend 75 degrees. Click enter, and now we have a 75-degree bend. Now we have kept the trim planes intact to where they are, and the triad we haven't moved either. So this is just strictly just clicking the body and putting in a bend. So we see the preview, we see what we had before. Now let's click OK and accept it. And you can see that now we have a 75-degree bend from one end to the other here. Now if we go back into this feature, we can adjust some of the bending features in a bit more detail. So let's right click on Flex 1, click Edit Feature. So this time what we're going to do is we're going to play with the trim planes. So let's bring in each trim plane a bit. So let's start out with trim plane 1, which is right here. So let's bring this in, and as you bring it in, you can see that everything from here to the right is straight again, and from here to the left is bending. And as I bring it back, you can see how it starts bending again, and as I bring it forward, you can see how it straightens it out. So let's put this at 80, and let's do the same to the other one. Let's put this to 80. Click OK. And now you can see that from here to here, it's straight on both sides, and you only have the 75-degree bend acting in between the two planes right along there. And that's what we wanted. Now let's go into it one more time. Click Edit Feature. Now let's play with the bend axis. So let's pull this axis out this way, and you can see the preview and what happens. And if we pull it out more this way, it's creating a longer arc and bend. So let's pull it out this way, create that longer bend, click OK. And you can see that it's lengthened the entire part, and it still made that 75 with these parts being straight. Now let's delete this entire flex that we made here. So click delete, click OK. And now we're going to go and do another flex, but instead of this time going and flexing along here, we're going to flex these guys, the two endpoints there. So let's click Insert, click Feature, click Flex, and click the body here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to rotate our trim planes around. So you can either rotate it through here, these points here, or you can just manually do it. Let's rotate it through these points here. And whenever you rotate it, it's always going to be at the most extreme point on the outside. So right now, each of these planes are tangent to these surfaces here. And let's just put that back to where it was. And as you see, as I'm rotating around, like I was saying about being tangent, when you first make it, it's always going to be tangent to a point, these trim planes. So as you keep going around, it's always tangent. And let's just put it to 90. And now let's add a bit of an angle and see what we get. So let's make it 90, this angle here. And you can see that we're bending. And now let's click OK. And now we've just bent the two ends into each other. Now let's go into this feature again. So let's click Edit Feature. And this time let's pull the bend axis. And you can see as you move it around, how it changes and how it alters what the entire shape is going to look like. So from that original shape, pulling it out like this, you're adding material and you're just changing the whole sizes and everything. So let's click OK. And now we have this as our part. So you're able to bend in pretty much any direction, and by bending, you're able to limit using the trim planes where that bending is taking place, and you're able to change your bend axis. And this concludes our tutorial on how to use the flex bending feature within SolidWorks. This is tutorial number 166, and it covers the twisting flex feature within SolidWorks. To start off, open up tutorial part number 164, which is located on the DVD. Now let's go to the flex feature, so let's click Insert, click Features, click Flex, and let's choose Twisting. Now the twisting feature is pretty much the same as the bend feature that we did last time, except that when we would do the bend, everything would go towards the same direction, but when you do twisting, everything's twisting the opposite way to each other. So to start off, let's click on our input. So it's going to be this body again. And you can see again we have the trim planes on each side, and this time we have a bend axis going through the middle. So just to see what the flex is like compared to the bending, let's just put this angle to about 20-30 degrees. And you can see that from its original state, this side's going counterclockwise, and that side's going clockwise. So let's click OK. And you can see how the two sides are twisting from one another. You can also see this twist along this line here. That was at one time parallel, but now it's twisting to that 30 degree. Now let's go and edit this feature. So let's click Edit. And again, we're able to play with the trim planes. So let's bring trim plane 1 in. And let's bring it about halfway into the middle there. So once you've brought it in about halfway there, nothing on this side has changed at all. You're only changing one side. As you bring this out a bit though, even though in between here is twisting, the end is also going to be affected a bit. So once you bring it to the midpoint, there's no twisting at all on this side. So let's just do that to one side twisting. So let's click OK. So that whole one side here has not twisted at all, and this side here is the only side that's had any twisting. Now let's go back in this feature again. And let's pull this one out a bit. Pull it to 100, and let's pull this guy into 100 too. Click OK. Now, the majority of the twisting is all done in this section here, but the end section, there's no twisting done, but at the same time, it's still moved as the contact point between these lines here has moved around. But you can see that these end guys here, they haven't twisted at all. They're still like their original shape, so all the twisting's just done in between here. Now let's delete this flex and let's do another one. Let's click Insert, Feature, Flex, and we'll do another twisting one. Now this time let's move this to 90 degrees, and we're going to do some flexing through the middle here. So if we increase that, you can see that all the flexing is done through the middle. And the more you increase it, the more these planes are twisting and moving around. So let's just set this to 15 degrees. And let's click OK. And you can see that through the middle that we flexed, each of these guys are going the opposite directions. Now let's click this flex feature and edit it once more. And you're able to move this bending axis around, and you can see as you move it around, so does the object, because it's bending around that axis, so it changes the final product, what you're going to get out of it. And again, you're also able to play around with the angle that all of these axes, or in these trim planes, are moving about. So when you do that, you're also changing your final product again. Let's put this up to about 20. Click OK. And we've done another twisting. So the twisting feature is pretty much the same as the bend, except that with the bend, everything would go in the same direction. With the twisting, it goes in the opposite directions. And this concludes our tutorial on the twisting flex feature within SolidWorks. This is tutorial number 167, and it covers the tapering flex feature within SolidWorks. To start off, open tutorial part number 164, which is located on the DVD. Now once you have it open and loaded, let's go to the flex feature. So click Insert, click Features, click Flex, and let's select the tapering, and we're going to select the body that we're going to work on. It's going to be this body here. And again, like all the other previous flex features, we have the trim plane, the two trim planes, and a bending, or in this case, tapering axis. So what happens in a tapering is from one plane to the other, it's going to taper to a certain ratio. So this here is the ratio that we're going to play with. So as you increase it and decrease it, it's going to change one side to another. So in this case, whatever is in between the two trim planes is going to be tapered by that ratio. So let's put a ratio of 1. And you can see how it tapers from a large to a small. So both ends get adjusted. So the trim plane 1, everything gets smaller. Trim plane 2, everything gets larger. So let's just accept this and see what we get. And you can see how the taper works here, how it tapers from this object to that object up there. Now let's go back and let's edit some of the trim plane. So let's click Edit Feature. And if we move the trim planes around, let's move both to 50. You can see how the end result has adjusted a bit. So when this was at 0, it's a lot smaller. As we bring it up to 50, it's going to get bigger. So we put both to 50. Let's click OK. And now everything in between here again gets tapered, and the end results change a little bit too. If you notice, this is still straight and it's a normal tube, and so is this bit here, but it's all going to be proportional. So there's no taper on the ends here anymore, but this is going to be proportional to this. So as this has kind of grown, this is going to grow, and at the other end of the spectrum, as this is shrunk, so is this guy going to shrink. So it's just created taper between the two here. Now let's delete this flex, and let's put in another one. Let's click Insert, click Feature, click Flex, and let's click Taper again. Now let's click this, and this time, let's turn this to 90 degrees, and let's create a taper. And this time, you can see that it's, if we put it up to 1, it's tapering these two ends down. So in between these two planes, again, whatever's in between the two planes, everything's going to get tapered. So let's click OK. And you can see how each of these sides have been tapered down, and the tube in the middle has really stayed the same. It's just added like these little bits of taper at the end. Now if we go and edit this again, let's bring these planes in a bit. So let's bring it to 50 and 50. Click OK. And again, you can see everything that's in between those planes gets changed, but outside of it stays the same. So these guys got tapered, and these guys stayed the same. So with the taper feature, it works again kind of like the bending, except that from one plane to another, it's going to taper with the ratio that you give it. And that concludes our tutorial on the Tapering Flex feature within Solidworks. This is tutorial number 168, and it covers the Stretching Flex feature within Solidworks. To start off, let's open up tutorial part number 164. Now once you have it loaded, let's go to the Flex feature. So let's click Insert, click Feature, click Flex, and let's select the input. So let's choose the part number 164, and let's click Stretching. Now what stretching is going to do is literally that. It's going to stretch the part using the trim planes however far you want it to be. So right now, just leave it how it is, how all the input is, where the trim planes are, and the axis. And if you see, as you increase it, everything's going to be stretched out. And if you notice, when you're stretching it out, it's stretched out proportionally. So as you're going farther and farther, this thickness compared to this thickness is proportional. And if we stretch it in, it will be the same. As we pull it in tighter, this thickness is thinner than this thickness, which is proportional to the overall stretching. So let's stretch this to 200, and let's click OK. And we've stretched the entire part by 200. Now let's edit this feature again, so let's click Edit Feature. And let's play around with the trim planes. So let's make this one 100, and let's make this one 50. And again, it's still being stretched. Now, let's pull this one in to the middle here. Keep pushing that one out. Click OK. And again, we've stretched it. So stretching is just pretty much taking what you got and just stretching it out. So you can either do it just by going through your features again, by going through and just editing a feature, but if you have a bunch of features that are on it and you want everything to be proportional to what you're doing, by going through this feature is a lot of help. So just by inputting this allows you just like to stretch everything at once rather than going through each feature and editing it. Now let's delete this one and we'll make one more. So let's click Flex and let's click the part again. Now at the X, let's put 45 degrees. So we're going to stretch this out just like how it shows here. So let's click Stretching and let's stretch this out 200 and see what it looks like. Click OK. And you can see that we've kind of stretched it out on an angle. So like I said before, the stretching feature is really good. Instead of going through each individual part and manipulating it to make a 45-degree stretch or moving it around, you're able just to do it, and it will carry over all of the features. So as you can see also, if you try to line it up, these holes are going to line up correctly. They're still like the right size and everything. So it carries over the features and it just stretches it the way that you want it to be. Now let's go into here one last time. And if you move the triad around and your axis, you're going to notice that it's going to move around everything, what your final result is going to be too. It'll move its position around and what it will look like. So just click OK and you get your result. So again, just a stretching, it's a nice and easy way rather than going through your whole tree and editing each feature to stretch something out. You're able just to do it in one shot with the Flex stretching feature. And that concludes our tutorial on how to use the Flex stretching feature within SolidWorks. This is tutorial number 169, and it is an introduction to Boolean operations within SolidWorks. Now, Boolean operations in SolidWorks is going to be the Combine feature, and it's going to cover add, subtract, and comment. Now, if we go into Insert and click Features and click Combine, that's going to be our Boolean operation. So what I'm going to do in this tutorial is just give you an introduction kind of to what a Boolean operation is, kind of like its definition, and how we're going to apply it into the following tutorials and how we're going to build up to be able to utilize and manipulate the add, subtract, and common. So just to get a definition of what they are, the add operation is the OR operation here. So really what a Boolean operation is it's a search. So when we're clicking the add, we're going to be doing an OR search. So it's going to say, I want this body or this body, and they're both going to be together. So we're going to put them in union. The subtract feature is going to be a not search. So if we look down here, the not search, again, it's like a search command. So you're going to click a body and then another body, and you're going to say, I do not want this body in it. So that not is going to subtract that body from the two. And then finally, there's the common, and the common is actually a AND search. So when you have the two bodies, whatever's common between the two is going to be selected. So anything that both of them are touching, that's what you're going to be left with. So really what this combine feature is a Boolean operation, and it's really like a search function. So it's going to search for a couple bodies, and it's going to see where they intersect, where they don't intersect, and using the add, subtract, and common, you're going to get different results each time. So I'm just going to click OK here, just get out of it. So in these next few tutorials, I'm going to show you how we're going to have to build kind of like our parts to be able to use a Boolean operation successfully. Now, Boolean operations are very, very powerful tools. It's very good to use because if you have a whole body, a whole part that you've made, you're able just to kind of snap it into, say, like a block and make a negative of it, instead of going through the process of creating the features and everything. And you're able to make objects that you would normally not be able to create if you weren't using a Boolean operation. So this is just kind of like an introduction just to show what a Boolean operation is, as it's actually just a search function, and that we're going to be covering the common, the add, and the subtract within our Boolean operations here. And this concludes our tutorial on the introduction to Boolean operations in Solidworks. This is tutorial number 170, and it covers solid bodies within SolidWorks. Now to start off, let's open up tutorial part number 159, which is located on the DVD. Now, as you can see in this tutorial part, we have a square and a cylinder, and if you look over here at the solid bodies, and if you open it up, you can see that we have two solid bodies here. Now, when we're going to be doing Boolean operations, we're going to need to have multiple solid bodies to create the Boolean operations of like an add, subtract, or common. So what we have to do is create multiple solid bodies. Now the thing is though, that these bodies can't touch each other. Now I'm going to show you that if I create a third extrude that touches this body, it's not going to create another solid body. So just to show you, I'm going to sketch on here. I'm going to sketch a square. I'm going to extrude it. Click OK. And there's still only two solid bodies. There's that body, and now there's this body. Now if I was to make an extrude that would touch both of these bodies, then there would only be one body. So let's do another rectangle. And extrude it, and it's touching both. Click OK. Now we only have one solid body. So I'm just going to back it up and delete these two. So now we're back to our two solid bodies. So we need to have solid bodies that are positioned away from each other, and then what we're going to have to do is move them using the move feature to allow them to interact with each other. If you create them inside each other to begin with, you're only going to get a single solid body. And when you have a single solid body, you can't do any of the combine features or the Boolean operations. So what we're going to have to do is create solid bodies that are away from each other, and then using a move tool to move them into position how we want to use them within our combine and Boolean operations. So that's just something that you have to remember when you're creating or trying to create your Boolean operations, is all of the solid bodies. You're going to need to make them kind of like this, how they're away from each other, and then move them into position. This concludes our tutorial of the solid bodies within Solidworks. This is tutorial number 171, and it covers how to make Boolean bodies within Solidworks. So what we're going to be doing in this tutorial is I'm going to show you how to make 2 solid bodies, and from those solid bodies we're going to be creating our Boolean operations from. So what we're going to do is we're going to create the bodies that we're going to be using in the next few tutorials to move them into position, then apply the common add and subtract feature to those bodies. So what we're going to do right now is create a couple bodies. So let's click sketch, click rectangle, click the front plane, and let's sketch out a square, and let's make it 50 by 50. And let's extrude this out, and we'll make it 50. Click OK. So now we have our square. And what we're going to do is we're going to create holes in the square going through each face. So let's click this face first, click sketch, click circle, and let's dimension the circle to 10 millimeters, and we'll make it right in the middle, so 25 by 25. And let's extrude cut this, make sure it goes all the way through, click OK. And now let's do it to the other 4 sides. So again, 10 millimeter diameter, 25 by 25. And one last one. And cut it all the way through again. So now we've created our first solid body that we're going to be using. So we've got our square, and we're going to have holes going all the way through it from each side. Now we're going to create our sphere. So it's going to be our second solid body. And like I showed you in the previous tutorial, we have to kind of split up the bodies so that they're not touching. If they're touching, it's going to only create one solid body rather than the 2 that we want. So let's click this face. Let's click normal to, zoom out a bit, and let's create another body. So let's click sketch, click center line, and the center line is just going to be our construction line. So just make it, and let's dimension it to 60. Now 3-point arc, let's click one point, the other point, and pull it out until it snaps at 90 degrees. Now let's click feature, click revolve, and you're going to see that it is creating a sphere. Click OK, and now we have our sphere. So if we look in our solid bodies box here, we have our first body, which is the box with the holes in it, and our second body, which is just a sphere. So we have our 2 solid bodies, so now we have 2 solid bodies that we can use to create a combine feature, so either a add, subtract, or a common. So just from what I showed you in the last tutorial, that we need to have multiple bodies that aren't touching. It's the same here. We have multiple bodies which aren't touching, and in the next tutorial we're going to move them about so that we can use it in our combine feature. And this concludes our tutorial on creating Boolean bodies within Solidworks. This is tutorial number 172, and it covers how to use the Move Body feature within Solidworks. To start off, let's open up tutorial part number 172, which I've located on the DVD. Now, this is the part that we've made in the last tutorial for our Boolean operations. So what we're going to do in this tutorial is we're going to move these two bodies, our multiple solid bodies that we've created, into position so we can utilize the combine Boolean operations. So to start off, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Move Body feature. So let's click Insert, Features, and Move. So let's click the sphere, as it's the body we want to move. We'll click it again, and let's click this face in here, make it concentric, click Add, click this circle again, the sphere, and let's click this surface here, click concentric, click Add, and now we have it in position where we want it. So let's click OK. And now we've moved the sphere and the square with the holes into position so we can do the combine. If you look, we still have two solid bodies. Even though they're touching each other, they're still solid bodies, unrelated to each other than they're touching each other. So even though they're touching, they're not one solid body. We still have the two, so we can pull away and use the combine or the Boolean operations. Now let's just give these guys a little bit of color, just so we know which one's which. So let's click the let's click colors, and let's click red, and let's open up the tree, and we'll click extrude 1, cut 2, and cut 3, and we'll make it red. And now we'll do it again. This time we'll click blue, and we'll click revolve 1, click OK. So now we have some color to go along. So if we hide this body, you'll see that the whole red block. And if we bring this back and hide the other body, we have the blue sphere. So now we have everything in position. We've color coordinated it so that when we cut it, we can see what's going on a bit more clear and see our combine. So this concludes our tutorial on how to move solid bodies within Solidworks. This is tutorial number 173, and it covers how to use the Combine Add feature within Solidworks. To start off, let's open up tutorial part number 173, which is located on the DVD. Now this part is what we've made in the past few tutorials. So it's a multi-solid body part. So we have the cube with the holes in it, and we have the sphere. So what we're going to do in this tutorial is we're going to combine both of these to make one solid body. So to do this, let's click Insert, click Features, click Combine, and all you have to do is click Add and select the two bodies. So either you can highlight them and select them, or you can go through the tree and click each body. Click OK, and now if you look here, we have the one solid body. So we've been able to create two bodies, move them together, and through moving them together, we've been able to create one solid body from the two. And that concludes our tutorial on how to use the Combine Add feature within Solidworks. This is tutorial number 174, and it covers the Combine Add Relevance within Solidworks. Now, what I'm going to do in this tutorial is I'm going to show you the relevance of actually combining these two bodies together. So to start off, open up tutorial part number 174 and tutorial part number 173, which are both located on the DVD. So what I'm going to show you is the whole reason why we combined these two to add and make one solid body. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to add a fillet to tutorial part number 174. Now this is the tutorial part that has one solid body, so we're able to select edges and create fillets using these. So let's click these edges here around the circles, all the way around on each side. Now let's click OK, and you can see that we created fillets around the flat surface going to the sphere. We were able to do this on each side, and we were able to select a solid edge there. As it was one object, we're able to get those solid lines. So now let's go to 173, And let's try to do the same thing with the fillet. So let's click fillet, and let's try to get those edges. So let's try to select an edge. You'll notice that nothing's getting highlighted, but let's try to click it. Now we've clicked the face, the square face, and this is not what we want. If we click OK, that's what we get, and that's not what we're looking for. Now if we go back, let's try it again. This time we'll go a little bit down into the blue, and we'll click the circle. We're not going to get any fillet on the circle, and again, that's not what we want. So by adding the two of these together, it creates the one body that we want, and we're able to put features on it, such as a fillet, that you need those two bodies to be together. If they weren't together, you won't get the results that you want. And you can see that by what we get here, and when we add a fillet to here, what we get. It's totally different. It's not what we want. And this is just the relevance of why we're adding two together to make one body. And that concludes our tutorial on how to see the relevance of a Combime Add within Solidworks. This is tutorial number 175, and it covers how to use the Combine Subtract feature within Solidworks. To start off, let's open up tutorial part number 173, which is located on the DVD. Now, let's go to the Combine feature, so let's click Insert, click Features, click Combine, and let's choose Subtract. Now again, you're either able to choose by highlighting it in here or open up the tree. So let's open up the tree, and let's open up the solid bodies. So again, we have the two solid bodies, and what we're going to do the first time is we're going to keep the square and subtract the circle. So let's click, first you have to choose the main body, so that's one you're going to keep, and that's going to be the cut extrude 3. And the bodies to subtract, we're going to choose a sphere, so it's going to be this guy. Click OK. And now we've subtracted the sphere from the cube. Now, this is a not Boolean search, so it's pulling out what you don't want to be there. So there's no sphere inside of there, so it's pulled out. Now, let's delete this one, and let's try the other way around. Let's go to Insert, Features, Combine, click Subtract, and this time let's keep the sphere, and we'll take away the square. Click OK, and now this is what we get. So we had the sphere, and the cube with the holes cuts out of that sphere. So that's what we get. And again, after doing a combine such as this, you're only left with one solid body after, even though you started out with two. So that concludes our tutorial on how to use the Combine Subtract feature within Solidworks. This is tutorial number 176, and it covers the Combine Subtract application within Solidworks. To start off, open up tutorial part number 176, which is located on the DVD. So what we're going to be doing in this tutorial is I'm going to show you an application of using the Combine Subtract feature in Solidworks. So in this example, what I have is I've already split up my two bodies and I've already positioned them. So one body is this rectangle that I have here, and my other body is the tubing that I have running right through it. So what I'm going to do in this tutorial is I'm going to show you how to first apply that the Combine Subtract feature that we've gone through in the last tutorial, and then edit it and just apply it into like a real life example like this. So what we're doing in this is we're saying that this tubing here is just like the channel that we want something to run through, and say that the square is just whatever it is that we want it to run through, that we want the liquid or whatever it may be to run through it. So we're going to cut it through, and then we're going to edit it. So first off, let's just do a Combine Subtract. So let's click Insert, click Feature, click Combine, click Subtract, and let's click the square because we're going to keep that, and then we'll click the tubing because we want to cut that out. Let's click OK, and you can see the end here is cut and the end there. And if we switch to wireframe, you can see it much better. So you can see in wireframe that we have the tubing that we had before is cut all the way through our block. Now, what I'm going to show you here now is that even though we've already done the subtract, we're still able to edit the subtract and make it how we want it to be, how we want to represent it. So as we've already made this part, now we see some things that we want to change. So for example, say we want to make the diameter of this hole bigger. So what we have to do is the sweep was the second body that we cut out. So let's open it up and click Sketch 3 and click Edit. And let's change this diameter. So we want it bigger, so let's make it 35. Click OK, and click Accept for the sketch and let it rebuild. And now if we zoom in, you can see that the diameter of the hole has grown, and it's updated on our model. Now say that we've actually made this part, whatever it may be, and that it's in our situation, whatever it is, and now instead of the hole being up here, coming out, say we need the hole to come out this way. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to edit the sweep again, but a different sketch this time. So it's Sketch 2. Let's right click and click Edit. So let's delete this line here, this line here, and that line there. And let's click Line and just extend this straight out. Click OK, let it update. And now you can see that instead of the tube going out at the top, it's coming out on the side. So even after we've already created our combine feature and subtracted everything, you're still able to go previously into the list and edit some of the features. So this is just an example of applying the combine feature into real life and what you would really be using it for. So that concludes our tutorial on the combine subtract application within Solidworks. This is tutorial number 177, and it covers the combine union feature within Solidworks. To start off, open up tutorial part number 173, which is located on the DVD. Now the combine common feature is the last combine feature that we're going to be covering, and what that is it's the binary AND search that I showed you before. So it's going to search for both of these parts, both of these bodies, and whatever both of them are touching, it's going to accept and keep. So to use the combine common feature, let's go into combine. So let's click Insert, click Feature, click Combine, click Common. So what we're doing in this, you just select which bodies you want. So either, again, you can select just by clicking here or going through the tree. So let's go through the tree, click both bodies, click OK, and that's what the result is. So the result, like I said before about the like the Boolean operation, because this is a Boolean AND operation, whatever both of them are touching, that's what's accepted. So as we had the sphere and the box with the holes, we're getting the sphere of what was inside the box, and of the box what was touching the sphere. So whatever touches each other, that's what we get as our final result. And that concludes our tutorial on how to use the combine common feature within Solidworks. This is tutorial number 178, and it covers the combine common application within Solidworks. So in the last tutorial, we covered how to use the combine common feature, and in this one, I'm just going to show you kind of like a real life example that you would use it for. So to start off, open up tutorial part number 178, which is located on the DVD. So what I have here, again, is two bodies. So the first body is kind of like a little C-clamp here, and then the second body is just like an oval that's been extruded out. So in this example, what we're going to do is we're going to use the common feature to create a common part between the two. Now, two reasons or two kind of applications of why you would want to do this. The first would be to get the kind of shape that you want. You've already created this kind of C-clamp, and you want it to kind of resemble the shape that you have here. So that's one reason for doing it like this. The other reason could also be for packaging. We can say that this oval is kind of like our envelope that we're able to work in, and the C-clamp's going to have to be modified to fit that envelope. So you can take an original part, such as the C-clamp, and just use the envelope that you've created, or the envelope that it has to fit in, to show what it will look like when it's modified, or to modify it altogether. So let's go through this and let's create a combine common between the two. So let's click Insert, click Feature, click Combine, click Common, and let's go through the tree and click the two bodies. Click OK. And now we've created a common part between the two. And again, the common, it's the AND Boolean operation, so everything that both touch, they both keep. So you can see that it's taken the shape of that oval, and it's also taken the shape of the clamp. So we've successfully, if you want to call the oval being an aesthetics look, we've successfully added that kind of aesthetic or design to the clamp. And if you want to look at it in a packaging way, the envelope, this part will now fit into that envelope that we've created or that's necessary for it to function. And this concludes your tutorial on how to use the Combine Common feature within SolidWorks. This is tutorial number 179, and it covers how to use the Split Bodies feature within SolidWorks. To start off, open up tutorial part number 179, which is located on the DVD. So we're going to be covering the Split Bodies feature, and what that does is, as you can see this part that we have loaded, if you open up the solid bodies, it's just one solid body. So we want to say split this up into multiple bodies. And why you would want to split something up into multiple bodies would be in a case, say you have a bunch of metal pieces, say each of these is metal tubing that is all being welded together, and each piece has to kind of be its own piece to kind of like make drawings and send out to get made. So it's easier to make everything in a part file like this rather than making each individual piece and kind of assembling it. So you can make everything in the part file and then split it up into multiple bodies and then send out each of those pieces or sections as its own body after that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to make some multiple bodies, and what we're going to do is we're going to make multiple bodies using this face here and this face here. And what that does is we're going to be cutting across those faces. So we're going to be cutting a line across there, and we're also going to be cutting a line across this face here. And doing that, we're going to create multiple bodies that we're going to be able to kind of extract and move around. So let's do the first one, and we're going to do it across this face here. So let's click Insert, click Feature, click Split. Now for the trim tool, click the face you want to use. So let's click this face here, click Cut Part, and it's going to cut it into 5 parts. So you can see if you move it around, there's a part there, part there, part there. So we have 5 parts all together. So let's accept them all, click OK. And now in our solid bodies, you can see that we have 5 solid bodies. Now each of these bodies, we can either hide them. So now we have different parts. So really, we've kind of like split this whole part up into 5 separate parts that we can kind of take out and extract ourselves. Now let's delete this split and let's do another one. So let's click Yes, click Insert, click Feature, click Split, and we'll do the trim tool, and this time we'll do it along this face here. So let's zoom in, click this face, and it's going to cut across that face like that. Click Cut Part, and you're going to see that we got one part there, one part there, and one part there. So let's accept all of these parts. Click OK. And now you can see that we have each of these parts. So let's hide this one, and now we have just this part here. So you're able to split it up into sections and parts depending on how you want to do it. So from that, you're able to extract kind of each section. It's up to you. It's how you want to do it, but this allows you to go from one body to split into multiple bodies, and from those multiple bodies, you're able to save each one as a section or as a single part, whatever it may be. And that concludes our tutorial on how to use the Split Bodies feature within SolidWorks. This is tutorial number 180, and it covers how to delete solid bodies within SolidWorks. To start off, open up tutorial part number 180, which is included on the DVD. Now this part is the one that we made in the last tutorial that we created the 5 solid bodies from. So as you can see, we got the 5 solid bodies on the side here. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you how you can delete each individual solid body. So the reason behind why you would want to do this, like I said before, when you have one solid body and you've created all these sections, you would, in this case, maybe save 5 copies of this file, and then in each copy delete 4 bodies that you wouldn't want in the file. So you can have each section as it's each individual file. When you put them all together, they're all going to come together just like this. So to delete a body, what you have to do is click Insert, Feature, Delete Body, and then click which one you want to delete. So let's click and delete body 1, click OK, and we've deleted that one body. Now let's do it again. So let's click Insert, click Feature, click Delete Body, and you can do more than one at a time. So let's do number 5 and number 3. Click OK, and now we've deleted both of those. Now you're also able just to go into the body and right click on it and click Delete Body also. It's going to bring you into the same menu. Click OK, and you've deleted that body. Now you're just left with the one body that you've extracted out of that whole assembly. So now you've got either your one, say like metal tubing, or your one little section that you want of that to save as this individual part file. And that concludes our tutorial on how to use the Delete Solid Bodies feature within SolidWorks.